So we were discussing about the void. And so when the singularity vortex opens, you're connected with your consciousness into the void. And the void exists in between and outside of the multiverse of dimensional spheres, density, space, and time. There is no time or space or anything in the void, but your consciousness interfaces on it. When you imprint into it, the imprint goes directly connects to source and it lasts forever because there is no time in the
Hmm.
void.
Right.
A couple of important statements about the void, which is, how the mechanism of how this whole thing works is connecting into the void. It says when the eye is activated, the vortex opens in the crystal that can collapse by entanglement 2 points in time and space. You know this by the name quantum, but it's more than quantum. You access the void. You can connect to any point in space, but also in time. As he said previously, that this is very powerful. You can connect to anything. The crystal you name quartz is in synchronized frequency with source. When the singularity of the vortex is triggered in the crystal, and when it bridges to source, frill comes from it. Frill bridges void and matter. And so you connect directly to source when you connect into the void. He says the program, I say you put a visualization, and John Han recommends, the project to create very clear holographic projections in our mind, and then project them. He says when the program will not wither in time if it was imprinted into the open vortex because you use the lattice network of creation. If the program is not imprinted into the vortex, the program will wither in time. In other words, when we're thinking things and we're doing things, the thoughts, they last for a certain amount of time and then they wither away in time. But when you imprint into this void, using the lattice network of creation, it lasts forever. And so it brings it into physical reality. Um, and of course, pure love intention is the most powerful frequency key to access source and bridge to the void. So if your thought is you're upset with your ex-girlfriend or something and want something bad or whatever, it's not going to work well. If it's you wish healing or something of love, with something, then so only loving intentions really uh, access the powerful keys to access and bridge to the void.
So
Uh,
when, so does this, so I'm gonna, tell me if I'm right about this, with what I'm kind of trying to pull together. So when Marcel Vogel was healing that tumor, you mentioned he held the crystal at the eye for the vortex, putting pressure on it, and then he did that breath work to get into like a gamma state with his mind, and then he basically had the love intention, or that vibration, that he was imprinting that visualization into the void, to be able to have that frill energy come through and actually physically make that tumor disappear. Is that kind of?
well, interesting you bring that up. I shared on marcelvogel.org, I shared all the detailed procedures that
Okay.
Marcel used.
Okay.
And so I'm very familiar with them. And I shared them with John Han, and he said these procedures are effective, and he gave very kind words about what a wonderful, incredible being Marcel was, and that his legacy should pursue. Um, the technique that Marcel was doing is he would love was key with Marcel. Always use a loving intention. It's all about love with Marcel. So, and what Jen Han said about the techniques that Marcel said, these techniques are effective, but he said, but Marcel didn't realize that he was actually bridging the dissonant frequencies to source, through his intention with the crystal. But
Okay.
the technique that Marcel used on that girl with the tumor was that there was a breathing process, a synchronization with each other, and he would go in and coupled with the crystal first, become one with it, an extension of himself, and then he would rotate the crystal in what do you call it, a critical rotational angle. And I'm asking Junhan about what's this angle thing, what exactly is happening with that, and he believes it has to do with some kind of resonance with the dissonant pattern, but he wasn't as sure, on that particular aspect. But he would rotate it, and I did this, dozens and dozens of times on different people, and I had good success with the techniques that Marshall shared with me. Um, in fact, first time he cut that crystal for me, I was flying back to San Diego, and it was a football player that just had surgery, and he was holding his knee in terrible pain. I'm sitting next to him on the aircraft, and I said, well, I'm not a doctor. I'm kind of an experimental scientist. If you want, we can try some unusual procedures. I figured, this Marcel gave me this gift, right? And here's a situation to use it. Um, yeah, and this is
Wow.
be a good, I mean, can't hurt him, right? And
Mhm.
so, first time I ever used it, did the procedures and we pulsed the breath, and he got off the plane, and he didn't have any more pain in his leg, and he pointed, he
Wow.
was with his parents. He said, that guy, he fixed my leg, and I just was so overwhelmed with gratitude that it worked, but I didn't. He basically healed himself. I facilitated him healing himself. And
Mhm.
that's the way it works. And you
Right.
always work with consent whenever you work with a crystal with
Good.
somebody. But
Mhm.
with the young girl, and I didn't know the full procedures at the time, but it was tuning into it, have the person with their mind go into where use the pain, use the hurt wherever is going in as as a beacon for your mind to lock on, like on a target, lock on to that, and then when your consciousness is locked on to where the problem is, whatever your problem is, and allow it to be shown to you in whatever form it wants to take. Once you have that, and then there's this process of breathing in sync together and this unification, and then you lock onto it, and then on the inhale breath, locked onto it, and through the nostrils, and then released like that. And, amazing transformations occur. Sometimes it always doesn't happen on the first shot. You have to have another go at it. But and Genhan liked that because it makes the person responsible for their own consciousness of doing it. And that's important, that we don't give the power to something outside of us, the crystal or whatever, that we take responsibility for healing ourselves. And what Marcel was doing was bridging the densities, according to Junhan. He was bridging the densities to source. And Una says the same thing. Um, and with the intention, it allowed it to release. And then with love, uh, love is like the integrative force of the universe. It's like Marcel said, the glue of the universe that holds everything together.
Mhm.
That you breathe, love back into the area, and it kind of restructures, and like Junhan says, the universe tends to perfection. So it will go back to its um, more resonant pattern rather than the dissonant disease, whatever it was. And
Mhm.
so that's kind of in a brief nutshell.
Wow,
Wow.
that's incredible. Yeah.
All right, back to our little show here. I don't know how we're doing on time. I'll try to go rapidly here. Okay, this is kind of the procedure. You prepare beforehand, going into gamma brainwaves, connect your um, vortex in your consciousness to the vortex in the crystal, and then you project your vision. Like say you want to see a beautiful reality and that all the deep state assets or the criminals of the world are taken care of and good technologies are released and the world is beautiful and wonderful. And you project that vision into it, and it'll affect the holographic matrix of reality. Now, this
Okay.
is about frill that you talked about earlier. And as you said, Daniel, the frill from source is the most powerful energy you can ever imagine to harness, right?
Hmm.
Of course, when the singularity of the vortex is triggered in the crystal, and when it bridges to source, frill comes from it because it's the quartz is directly resonant with because it's um, on all densities at the same time. Frill is the energy created from gravity waves, or what you name ether. These gravity waves are also named compression waves. People talk about, longitudinal waves, scalar waves, these gravity waves are like these pulses in the ether. And these waves can be created by a gravity or a scalar pulse sufficiently powerful and constant. It's the abrupt boom like that, the pulse that
Hmm.
releases this frill energy. You will learn that consciousness can project scalar waves and generate frill. I'm not speaking about electrical brain waves, which are efficient too, but about pure consciousness. Frill can be present everywhere in the multiverse as efficient when activated by a pulse. And so, in this conversation with Jen Han, uh, he, about the frill generators that he has on the planet Era, he says, on my home world, we have power generators, such as you know from Atla, and referring to, he's always trying to trigger my memory of being a scientist in Atlantis, in the capital city. He said, I wish I can converse you with directly face to face. How exhilarating it would be, instead of going through the implant. Anyways, on Air, we do have a central power plants. The question I asked about how the eye of the crystal, it is the basis of how they power their planet and the basis of how they power their starships. I mean, it's
Hmm.
it's like critical core information.
Right.
I'm so honored to be able to, share this with everyone. The frill harvested is collected in the top of the pyramid and resonate, or you may understand better the term teleported. They don't use wires to
Right.
smaller devices that we name secondary generators. These transpond the frill for and toward the power webs of our cities. In the countryside settings, they have these big pyramids in the big cities, and in the little towns they have good sized, medium sized pyramids. And then if you're way out in the boonies like I am, you have a little unit that will power everything in your house.
Hmm.
And in the countryside settings, each house can choose to have a small replica of the big pyramid generators, or we can either have a generator that supplies the whole community. That is how we have organized where I'm coming from, the Udur in the Nardarien Valley on the planet Era. We are relying upon a community generator on the hill above the valley. It supplies power to all the habitats. This is stable and greatly efficient because of the lake, the water. Frill generators are always near water. Our sister works as an attendant. She is part of the maintenance team. It's more of an occupation for her. This is their older sister. She's 160. See, they live 900 to 1500 years. So, at 160, you look like that. So they're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um, this is Jen Han and Thor Han's older sister. Now, the frill is used also to power their spacecraft using crystals and perpendicular torsion fields. A
Hmm.
dynamic impulse in the ether, again, it's abrupt pulse that happens that releases the frill, creates the compression waves which generate frill. crystals in the central core. Here you can see the central core is with these crystals that store and convert the power into the red ionized mercury plasma in the dual perpendicular toroids for the ship's anti-gravity system. And here you can see one toroid is going perpendicular to the other toroid, which is going in this direction. And the interaction of these two perpendicular toroid fields cancels mass and works to be the anti-gravity system. And this is another important point I was going to say about this. But yeah, this is how they power their starships. Elena was shown one of these crystals in their power generators, and you can see it's wrapped with two a copper and a silver wire. Now they gave a gift of information here, because I'm always trying to take this information that Genhan is giving me to give some kind of practical application we can use on our planet for a beneficial purpose, rather than just being theory, right? And so he gave the construction details, and so we created this frill generator that uses, you can see the copper coils and the silver coils going perpendicular to each other, and a crystal in the center. The torsion fields conjugating with the crystal field releases the frill inside the crystal. The copper here is wound clockwise for the electromagnetic field. The silver windings are wound counterclockwise in the opposite direction for the etheric field. It seems like there's always this opposites, interacting with each other. These two coils are at 90 degrees perpendicular to each other, and we pulse them. Now, remember, Genhan said, remember, quartz, light, love, all on the same frequency. Well, the frequency of quartz is 4096 hertz. And so we're pulsing the two coils 180 degrees out of phase with each other. You guys having electronics and engineering knowledge can appreciate this part. So you can see on the scope we're pulsing them 180 degrees from each other. And I presented this last year along with our science team of Kent and Chris to like 900 people at the Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection, which was sponsored by Danny Henderson, who convinced me I should go and reveal that I'm not into doing conferences, but she talked me into it. So a number of applications. I'll just go real rapidly on these. The frill generator crystal, obviously, we can't use it for power generation because it's dangerous, because the deep state still has some degree of control, as you can see, on our planet. But we're able to utilize the frill that's being generated. And the frill, Genhan says, the frill modifies matter by reorganizing the atomic bonds in what is dissonant. That is how you say in a simpler way that frill can heal. Frill has no effect on the atoms, properly speaking, but on the frequency between them. Frill regenerates your cells by invigorating and strengthening the bonds between the particles that compose it. You can impregnate the frill into water also. With frill-charged water, you can drink this water and bathe with it. Rinsing your hair with this water, you notice a difference in radiance in your hair. That probably beauty salons, you can see, frill generators. This water heals. It can repair disharmonics in the body. It extends youth. Plants and other biological life forms, such as humans, naturally feed off frill that is present in the surrounding ether, as you call it. We're surrounded by frill everywhere, and we utilize it when we inhale and so forth. Increasing the frill supply has not only an energizing effect, but it also heals. When there is a wound or a disease, the frill level is weak. So, I see applications where a home unit could energize the air we breathe. They could impregnate it into the house water supply for bathing, drinking. You could even have frill spas that have chambers that people immerse into for revitalizing. Agricultural units could impregnate the water to irrigation lines for plants to grow rapidly and abundantly without, this is like takes electroculture to the next level, eliminating need for fertilizers and pesticides. The reality modulator, which Jen Han also calls reality shaping technology, allows a consciousness to interface with an activated open vortex of the eye of the crystal to be able to modify the holographic matrix and alter reality. Now, applications, using your creative consciousness with loving intention, envision a desired reality to come into physical manifestation by modulating with your intention the etheric energy that is being transponded by the crystal to be impregnated into the open singularity vortex of the void, which we talked about earlier, which uses the grid of the universe to change the holographic matrix of reality. As we said earlier, this is how the Palladians use etheric energy and convert it into physical reality. Examples in healing oneself, you can visualize a more healthy, optimized avatar of yourself to be superimposed on your current avatar. As the universe tends to perfection, the healthier pattern will be supported to morph into physical reality. Or, you positively affect the planetary matrix. Now, each of us are connected into this planetary matrix that we're in, this morphogenic grid. And this would be like a heavy artillery, to change the morphogenic grid that you can envision the type of world you'd like to see. And in crystal healing work, what Marcel originally started in specially cut crystals, now with a greater understanding of cutting the crystal in perfect alignment with the natural grid lattice in order to access the eye, healing work has the ability to restructure the holographic matrix of reality to more rapidly allow healing transformations to occur. And, as I said earlier, I shared all the techniques that Marcel used, and Jen Han responded by saying, "These methods I have just read are effective. I wish I have known such a great mind and vibrant being as Marcel Vogel. His legacy must perdure and be used to assist the people of Terra in the evolution of consciousness." Our engineer has made a small device. Now you can use your cell phone as well, turn off all the Wi-Fi and cellular and all the radiation and download a free app, 4096 hertz frequency. But for those who want a little portable device, our engineer has created one, and people at Crystal Light and Sound, they offer it to people who want to buy one of those. And it's very accurate down to, out to several digits. I forget the exact spec. But, the fact that 4096 can also clear water, I said, well, then it can clear a crystal completely, which Una substantiated. Elena had one of our devices, and she said not only it brings it down to base 0, but it actually invigorated the crystal. So it's so important when you work with crystals that you remove the previous programs, because every time you hold a crystal, it's being programmed, with your intention. So you want to erase everything previous and work with a clean tool. And so I asked him about water. I said, since it clears the crystal, does it also clear water? And Jen has, yes, it does. Even when used on your physical body, it shakes the dissonance. Most of our body is made of water that makes up the physical shell. I ask, in other words, can it clear or even structure water to be healthful? He said, yes, it can. So I'm putting this out to everybody, the researchers. I don't have time to develop on this, but if you expose to an audio frequency of a sine wave, not a pulse, but a sine wave of 4096 water, you will see that water, Dr. Gerald Pollock has done some research with water with the exclusion zone and so forth, that you may be familiar with. But this could be a method to clear water inexpensively using sound. This is pretty far-fetched. I mean, it's not far-fetched, but more um, more extreme. The vortex horizon curve, there's a sequence of frequencies which Jen Han gave me, which goes from 10 up to 550 hertz, that if you pulse in this sequence into the eye of the crystal will open this vortex singularity and will become saturated, that you want to disconnect immediately as soon as it starts. He says when the crystal starts to sing, in other words, the interferometry that happens creates this audio sound, right? And so when you hear the sound, you want to disconnect immediately. He gives a warning. He says there's a time mass ratio that corresponds to the saturation point. Because there is a saturation point, after this point is passed, the crystal implodes. It becomes light and transcends matter and density. So when the crystal is charged up with this frill and you disconnect it immediately, you hold in your hand and you can absorb the frill, which has a beneficial effect in your body. And last but not least, I hounded Jen Han for months to try to get this exercise that they do, that it regenerates your DNA. And I'm going to share it with you in a very concise format. Thor Hanaredion says that the frill harvesting technique is part of their Dorm Darhu, or the Palladian, it's kind of their ET yoga practice. This will assist regeneration and help alleviate disease and deterioration of our Terran envelopes. It reconnects the hydrogen links between the chromosome inter-elements. DNA can be transmuted into a stable state of auto-regeneration once you unlock the blocks that keep the strands disconnected from the morphogenic field of the universe. And so this is the exercise that I finally was able to get out of Jen Han. Now you can use a crystal to hold in your hand and point at your heart to help augment this, but it's not necessarily. But it's important to kind of go into a gamma brainwave level before you start the exercise. But this is how you do it. You visualize the influx of frill into your central heart vortex with your pulse breath be feeding the upward toroidal flow. Now, how you do this is you visualize the frill being projected into your heart chakra or heart vortex, using your pulse breath as like that, and as you're projecting it in. As you're projecting this into your heart vortex, it's feeding the upward toroidal flow that's circulating upward from the base of your spine up toward the top of your head and back down again. In other words, you have this toroid, right, that's coming up from your base of your spine to the top of your head, that's flowing. You have this toroid that is continually repeating the cycling of this toroidal flow energy as you pulse breath the frill into your heart vortex to energize this flow. So this flow that's happening from the base of your spine to the top of your head, you're feeding this by the frill that's going into your heart vortex. And so, all these details and everything on marcelvogel.org. Here's another shot of Jen Hanaredian and some key statements that he said. And that's the slide presentation of information. So it's quite remarkable that just all this happened because of that one question that I asked, that he was able to share this fundamental technology that they use of the crystal that allows them to alter reality.
Incredible.
Right.
Yeah. It's amazing.
So many benefits to knowing this for sure. So we're so fortunate that you asked the right questions and that you're able to share this with the world. Yeah.
And that's it. You just have to ask the right questions. And and it was probably like Jen Han said, because that Emether back in 1977 put a burning passion into me. I grabbed every book I could back in 1970 and tried. I didn't even know what platonic solids were and how they nested one into the other and everything. And when I was reading this, I said, oh my God, That's what the being, and over the decades, I find more and more scientific substantiation. And then exactly as the being conveyed to me, and what is remarkable is exactly what Jenhan has confirmed, is that as we evolve with our consciousness, through love, through the densities, into the higher densities are aware of the lower densities, but the lower
Mhm.
densities are not aware of the higher densities. And that each one of these densities has a geometry to it, and that one links into the next, into the next, and the next, and it goes into infinity. Um, and the highest is source, of which we are all fractals and emanations of. We have this left and right. Source is dual in nature, and therefore it's creative. We are also creative because we have this dual nature of our being that interfaces with the pineal gland that's right between the hemispheres of our brain, that generates this interdimensional vortex that with our thoughts we can project these holographic patterns that are geometric and alter reality.
It's
It's
amazing.
so amazing. And I guess the final link, though, that we didn't discuss yet was actually the Wingmaker's crystal. But I mean, all of these types of concepts our grandfather put in his book, and the Wingmakers and the ACIO happened to be that last chapter, but it kind of ties these ideas together. Um,
Oh,
all right.
I'm embarrassed. I haven't had a chance to read your I've just been so busy with things. I haven't had a chance. I need to read your grandfather's book. He was a wonderful, wonderful gentleman. I remember his energy. We had breakfast together at the Hilton before we went to the National Press Club, and
Mhm.
he was a hero. Your grandfather. You know, he he had a moral basis. I mean, he didn't feel right about the things that were being done. He didn't feel right about. They knew that, eh, you know, they murdered James Forrestal, who was
Right.
wanting to reveal this to the public, but MJ12 took over control. They completely hid the Nazi infiltration and the Nazi escape with their advanced technology. And they've kept they created NASA, run by the Nazi SS. Um, all these decades we've had, I was a child in the 50s. It was, I was digging on Day the Earth Stood Still and Forbidden Planet and all these incredible, flying saucers and beings from other. I thought it was just imagination out of, but the real thing was going on while we were being fed science fiction.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, he definitely wanted this information out, and we're getting more and more confirmation of what his true story was and how much he didn't share with the public, especially at the time, because of the fear of what the consequences would be for him, but or maybe even for us as a family. But um, we actually shared a presentation in May, so I sent you a link, and that kind of gives a good summary of the book if you want to look at that as well. So.
I
Um,
will, I will.
yeah.
And
There's a lot of work still to be done in the to uncover. Yeah.
sure. And one of the topics in the book, as Derek mentioned and I mentioned at the beginning of the show, was the Wingmakers. That was the last chapter of his book.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
He talks about
Um,
the ancient Arrow site, which is located near Chaco Canyon in New Mexico, and it was discovered with this amazing cavern that had 23 different chambers in it, and all these different artifacts were left there with their different paintings in each chamber, and they all had different meanings. And we've talked extensively with the ACIO about the meanings of the chambers and the paintings and what they are. But if you look at the website, there's only two artifacts that are actually shown there. Um, and the first one is what you had there, that is this crystal, and it
Yeah.
looks to be like a vocal cut crystal, which is kind of
yeah,
amazing.
of course
Very
that
similar.
immediately grabbed my attention.
Yeah.
And the whole story is quite remarkable and incredible. when you get into it. And it's interesting, they had a painting with each artifact, and the one
Right.
with the crystal happens to be a portal, which is
Yes.
interesting as well. But yeah, I'll bring that slide up again. No, it's not actually a slide, it's on my on the site, marcelvogel.org. But yeah, interesting symbols that they had with that. Now, let's see, I'm going to
You mentioned the torsion, like the twist in the cut, it looks like, right?
yeah, this is the chamber one painting. Now,
And Peter the Insider did say that's a portal when we discussed it with him, so that's true. Yeah.
oh, interesting. Well, here's what's interesting to me. I have calibrated eyeballs. I can spot a 52-degree angle. You see, so we have a 52-degree angle here, right? And almost an identical 52-degree angle on the other end. And remember, as Jenhan said, if you have the same, they'll cancel out the vortex as they come together. Now,
Mhm.
here, I don't know if this is because of the way it was photographed or some kind of distortion. But if you're looking at the 6 sides of the crystal, the 6 facets on the side, now you see what I'm seeing? You're seeing here's the line, and
Yeah.
here's the facet, and it's not going straight across.
No,
There
no.
there is a curvature here,
Yeah, it's
and
definitely kind of sloped down on that. It's like twisted, like both ends, like
there's a twisting. Yes, exactly. There's a twisting of that, and um. It's not exactly a perfectly clear crystal. It has inclusions in it. But this is something I'm going to ask Jenhan specifically about this, what the effect would be if, and how you would do that. Because
Yeah.
you'd have to be in alignment with the hexagonal core, but then cut the crystal so that the facets are offset in this twisting manner. So it's a very, very interesting, it's a very interesting way of forming the crystal that I've never seen before.
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, since they both appear to be that um, the same angle of incident at the end, and that would cancel each other out. Maybe the twist, the torsion in it puts it at a different phase, so it actually still does something instead of canceling each other out or something like that. Maybe.
Yeah, I took the image, enhanced it, and I brought it into an angle program that determines the exact angles on an image, and they're both ends are very close to being the same. So there's not a difference in there, like Jen had said, they have to have a difference, or else the two vortices would completely annihilate and cancel each other out, just like in electronics, you have two frequencies exact same and
Mhm.
come together on the same phase angle, and they'll nullify each other.
Yeah,
Right.
So yeah,
interesting.
we have another mystery there.
Yeah, I'll be curious to find out
Very.
what he says about that. Yeah.
Have
Yeah,
one.
I'll let you know what he says. That isn't. I'll include this image to him, and see what would be the effect of a twisted crystal with equal termination angles.
I was gonna ask just the one on the last question was I know Dan Winter, I guess, is gonna be at this upcoming conference. Have you discussed much with him about this technology and what his take is? I know he's has a brilliant mind and goes in a lot of directions.
I've attempted a few times to engage with Mr. Winter. Mr. Winter is very attached to his phase conjugate pump wave theory.
Uh-huh.
And from his responses, I get that he has not reviewed any of the information that I've been receiving over 2+ years.
Hmm.
So he uh, he has a different perspective, and so I've been wanting to share with him to but he's pretty attached to his his viewpoint, and
Okay.
so
Okay.
I'm I like what Marcel used to say. He says a true scientist um, has to, let's see, better to bring this.
Has to be willing to at least take in new information and or disprove if he's really satisfied with his own theory, he has to do everything to try to debunk it, right? To disprove it to make sure that it is a solid theory.
Yeah, Marcel used to say, I love how what he says here. He says, the true scientist is one who attempts to discover with childlike curiosity. Too often, all of us only want to confirm what we already believe. So
Right.
it's like this humbling that that we don't know everything, that there's always more for us to know. And that, I think that is the healthy scientific attitude to take, is that there's so much we don't know yet.
Yeah.
So it's good to I certainly don't know everything. I've seen a lot of clues that indicate the direction of understanding in the scientific, but I by no means don't have all the answers. So it's important to always stay open to new understandings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say that this information comes at the most critical time in our history. I mean, obviously with all this stuff happening and everything seems to be coming to a head, especially politically, the election. I mean, I think if people know that this is possible and if they want to see the best outcome and the best future, that we really should start trying to take advantage of this technology that's inherent within ourselves and think of the use our consciousness and our love vibration and all those things to bring that future forward, hopefully. Yeah.
It's definitely, that is such an important point, because the dark elements on this planet use our creative power to form their reality. That's how they have taken over Hollywood, Netflix, and different things to create. If you look at, if one thing I'll hit me, you look at the covers of all these different movies, somebody's got a gun, or shooting somebody or something. There's always this continual perpetuation of fear and violence, and going on, that they know that collectively. And it's interesting that Professor Heinz Eyck, the University of London in 1957, he said there was this giant conspiracy of like hundreds of universities and different educational outlets to silence the power of what we knew of our human consciousness to affect reality. It's like when the Nazis infiltrated, the Rockefellers took over our education system, and they actually rewrote the history in 1946. They rewrote the history of World War II in order to hide the Nazi escape and infiltration. That they didn't want us to know that collectively, all of our minds, if we envision a reality, that it affects this morphogenic field of which we all collectively create this reality according to our belief about it. And that's why the dark ones have with the Bilderberg meetings and the trilateral, with the uh the six main corporations that the intelligence agencies have consolidated since 1983, which we had 50 media companies down to only six media corporations to control the perceptions of everybody, on CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, New York Times, the whole gamut of which they create a perception in the minds of millions of people through their control of the media, in order to move forward on their agenda that is centrally controlled. not in the interest of the public, but in the interest of the enemy. That's why, Mr. T says, the enemy of the people. It is indeed the enemy of the people that is not moving toward the interest of humanity, but more for this, the perpetrators that have enormous amounts of wealth that are connected together with certain family bloodlines that want to basically enslave our planet. They're going for this one world enslavement where they keep all this advanced technology, the med beds, we've had on, as we disclosed back in 2001, we've had anti-gravity vehicles. The Germans had it in 1934. We had it in 1954, anti-gravity. And so if we were to transform our reality through our collective consciousness and aware of the perpetrators and what they're doing and how they're manipulating, there's so much, as there's so much division. You can see it across the social media. And it's all because of this control of our perceptions through our information systems that is creating this division. They want to divide us, divide and conquer, black against white, one religion against the other religion. One, Republican, Democrat, all these different ways that they try to divide a wedge between us to keep us fighting amongst ourselves, where the real enemy, like in the Wizard of Oz, where Toto brings back the curtain, this is the guy back there pulling the wedges of the mainstream media corporations that's forming our perceptions. But when we become aware of that, and you can't really tell people about this stuff. You think you're a crazy conspiracy theorist.
Right.
But
Oh, we
it's actually,
know. Yeah.
yeah, you know that one. So,
Um,
yeah,
It,
so this technology that, as Jen Han said, my mission that I chose is to help show how we can change our reality. And you don't need a crystal, to do that. We have the power within us, but the crystals are, as you can see, they're very powerful tools. And
right.
as Jen Han says, well, why not use these powerful tools, But it's all consciousness, that creates our reality.
True. Yeah,
Exactly.
you're absolutely right. The powers that be create the reality they want through the uh, media and the information they portray to us, and it impacts the collective consciousness. That's what manifests. And so we're happy to spread this information that you're providing here to counteract
Yeah.
that as much as possible. And I mean, the internet is uh, the best means that we have to have a different message go out to everybody. So we're glad to have you here sharing this with us. So thank you very much, Dan. Really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. And I've been researching, ever since 2001, a media company wanted me to write an article on the control of media in regards to the extraterrestrial issue, why they're keeping it secret, and so I've been researching, since 2001, and all these different witnesses, not only this regular witnesses, military witnesses, and secret space program witnesses I've been researching. And when I ran across the information that Elena Danan's been giving, that has so many, and if you go to thewebmatrix.net, I have a page that all the corroborations that there's no way that
Yeah.
she's making this stuff up, things like knowing different planets before NASA even discovers it in Proxima Centauri, that there's an earthquake, huge earthquake in Mars, and then Thorhan is doing terraforming, and then it's in the news, the largest earthquake, or Mars quake, I should say, in the
Uh-huh.
solar system's recorded, Neptune heating up, all these different, there's like at least over 24 different corroborations of what she's publicly released
Wow.
and then been confirmed. So I recommend, Elena Danan, DANAAN.org, to look at her information because she's graciously taken on the task of being an emissary for them to relay this information because of this she's taken this horrific experience that was horrifying when she was 9 years old and turned it into a gift so she can relay messages from the Galactic Federation to us. And so, I would pay attention to the information that she is sharing because it's based on a direct contact with these beings that are well ahead. Their hands are tied to a certain degree because of the prime directive, because they're not here to save us,
Right.
but they're here to do everything they can to support us in saving ourselves and to clean house from these deep state elements. But their upper echelon of the pyramid has been decapitated because back in 2021, the Sakaar reptilians, the Nebu Greys have been neutralized, and the Nazis and Nakwaffen that came out of the 1930s. It's like the most amazing science fiction movie you ever heard, but it's all based on fact. Based on many witnesses, have been removed from our solar system. So they're basically squabbling and panicking and doing what they can in order to maintain power. I just heard that the Microsoft system has taken out banks and airlines and everything. They're probably going to try, it's just like they did the Event 201 before the thing happened. They did
It's
Project
like a trial run.
that's the one. Yeah, we're a simulation of a complete cyber attack on all their systems. They have backdoors to all this stuff. They send an update which crashed all the systems, and I think it was just a test. So I think they're going to pull out all stops, in order to. They're like a dangerous animal that's backed into a corner. So they're going to try everything they can. Like they just did, on the 13th to Mr.
Right.
T.
Right. Yeah. So I think no matter what, everybody should, take this information for what it is and keep doing your own research, and Elena's information as well. I think we see it too. There's lots of divide in the disclosure community, and that's always going to be there. And they've also been able to infiltrate and help perpetuate that in
Oh,
many ways. So I think people just have to keep an open mind, but don't disregard information because of where it comes from or how you might think it's coming from. Like, look at the true facts or the truth that comes from it,
Yeah.
and use it to your benefit, and try not to let the movement and certain factions and things get in your way at the end of the day. And until we see that, brilliant future that we want, let's just keep on keeping our intentions up high and using our powers that you're obviously sharing with us to do that. I think it's
yeah.
really
My recommendation is research everything. Look at the mainstream media. Look what they're saying. Look how they're doing the narrative. Also look on Rumble. Look on YouTube. Look at what they demonize. What they say. Don't look at. It's all misinformation. Go into that and look at it. Look at everything. And then when you have a larger perspective to see, all of a sudden you can see. All of a sudden everything starts to reveal itself because they and as the thing with truth is it resonates and has a tendency to perpetuate and keep revealing itself and being substantiated, whereas lies keep getting revealed and exposed. And so the best way is to keep an open mind. But, it's like the hardest thing, for some people to even, because it's so masterfully done, the psychological warfare over so many decades, that for people to even comprehend that, because when you grew up, your parents watch television, I watch Walter Cronkite with my father, and you have
Right.
no reason to question or the media.
Yeah.
But you take that into adulthood, and a lot of people have taken that into adulthood, and they masterfully say, "Oh, these conspiracy theorists are, baseless. Don't pay attention to them." But when you find out that I did a link on the webmatrix.net that goes into the whole history of how they infiltrated the
Oh
mainstream
yeah.
media.
I love
Uh,
that. Yeah, I mean, you did so much brilliant work on there. So please recommend everybody to go see that and go to
oh,
that site.
thank you, thank
Yeah,
you.
that archive is fantastic. I always recommend it. It's like anytime I
We
need a
used it,
more
we used it in
detailed.
our presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay, let me go check the webmatrix.net. Dana definitely has something on this, and I can find all the details. You've done such an amazing job with timelines. And just,
Yeah.
it's awesome.
And it needs updating. It's a full-time job keeping up on all of this, but I think there's enough core information with reference links that people can do their own due diligence and verify the information for themselves. I mean, when I went to Washington to testify along with your grandfather, we were backed by over 500 military intelligence witnesses. How many people does it really take? But if you control the media, it doesn't matter if you had 50,000 witnesses with absolute proof.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, it wouldn't matter. So um,
Exactly right.
it's and these shows and the people watching, it's like a lot of your audience is savvy. They know a lot of the stuff. So it's kind of like preaching to the choir, because they know a lot of the stuff that we're already saying. That it's the other people that are locked in on MSNBC and CNN, and that
Yep.
that it it's going to be a shock, when the full truth comes out. Thorhan has said that how they're doing. They gave a disclosure plan back in the beginning of 2023,
Mhm.
and it's rolling out. And we've had the Solar Warden space program we've had anti-gravity for long. We have a space program. But the public doesn't have they're starting to get clues of it, but they can't just say, we have this, we lied to you for decades. So what they're going to do is they come out, and I'm seeing videos coming out that are talking about, the TR-3B, and they're talking about, Nazi Germany and having anti-gravity, and,
Yeah.
I mean, professionally done high-end videos that are revealing this. And this is exactly what Thorhan said they're going to be doing. They're going to be leaking it out, and then doing it in such a way that it's like people can accept that, oh, okay, hey, we're making great advancements, wow, look at this, look what the Air Force is doing and the
Right.
Navy, and so that's how they're going to try to minimize the shock
Mhm.
of decades of deception to transition us into the truth of the reality that's been hidden from us.
Yeah. That's
Kind of
important. It's important. We don't want to leave people behind and too much of a shock to get it all for sure. I just hope I think now is the dam starting to break open. Like I feel like this year especially we're making a lot
Oh,
of head. Yeah.
they're everything they're doing is with a minimal impact and loss of life, because it can go crazy, this whole thing. So they're doing it for the minimal impact for our transition. And think about it. Once we transition and become a peaceful civilization, and that have these criminals of humanity brought to justice and out of positions of power and influence that
Mhm.
influence everything,
Yeah.
then we could join the many galactic civilizations that are part of the Galactic Federation of Worlds. And once we do that, then all of the advanced technology it then be available to us, because then part we're going along with the Prime Directive. We're part of this benevolent uh, based on it's based on an equality of all beings.
Right.
yeah.
And medbed technology, there's thousands of medbeds that are inside the moon right now. This sounds crazy to some people, but
Wow.
they will be released, and hospitals will be retrofitted. All the corrupt pharmaceutical corporations that will be taken out of business, they won't be needed anymore, because these new modalities look at us as the true nature that we are, which is holographic energy,
Yeah.
and can cure anything, reverse age us. We can travel from Europe to the US within minutes. We can teleportation, across the board, everything.
Yeah.
Uh, it'll be
The
uh,
Star Trek future we want.
the Star Trek future, like Dr. Michael Salla says. Yes.
Well, it's so exciting that I think this is great. I think it brings it full circle that you were our first guest on the show, and so much has happened since then, and such the great work that you're doing. And now I feel like, yeah, it's a great way to have you
Oh,
back, and of course, hope we have you again. But it just goes to show what you've been doing, and so we thank you so much for
oh.
all that you've been doing.
I'm humbled and honored to be on your show and to be able to have, Elena has been so gracious to put up with thousands of questions and all. The communications log is on marcelvogel.org. You can go there and see all the questions and answers. But she has been, so incredibly gracious to accommodate. But it's giving the knowledge to our planet. And
Mhm.
so long as I'm not violating the Prime Directive, um, I can share this knowledge with everyone.
Right, exactly.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Thanks again, Dan. And yeah, I hope you guys, everyone enjoyed this show. It's a beautiful future ahead of us, and we just got to keep shredding the veil along the way. So thanks, everyone.
Oh, great to be with both of you, Daniel, Stefan. We'll have to do it again. I'm still learning, much more coming.
Perfect. We can't wait.